You're listening to the Begin Within Health Show with Nate Slager. For more, go to beginwithin.fit/podcast, or to enroll right now in our flagship coaching program, go to beginwithin.fit/coaching. Difficult weight loss can actually be a blessing. You probably haven't thought about it that way. Not many have, but my guest today will tell us how. How can that be? How can it be that stubborn weight loss, difficult weight loss, a feeling of I've tried everything and I can't figure it out? How can that actually be a good thing? We're going to talk about that today. My interview is with Carly Lucchesi. She is a registered dietitian with over 13 years of experience. She helps her clients solve a couple of problems. One is chronic inflammation. And we're going to talk about that quite a bit. We're going to talk about top-down sources of inflammation and bottom-up sources of inflammation. Listen up when we get to that part. She also helps her clients to deal with emotional eating. And in addressing those two things, she has found that some of the more challenging cases, some of the more difficult weight loss scenarios end up being some of the ones where the best results are realized, because it's not just a quick fix. It's about actually addressing some of the underlying reasons, the underlying mechanisms behind the weight gain in the first place. She's going to talk about that today in our episode. I know that you're going to enjoy it. Please sit back, relax, and pay close attention to my interview with Carly Lucchesi.
My primary focus would be helping people to lose weight peacefully. And when I say peacefully, that means that it's going to have a real focus on eliminating or reducing any chronic inflammation that may be derived from either, your bottom-up sources or your top-down sources of inflammation. So it's definitely taking that whole body approach, incorporating the brain, and really looking at that whole person.
Got it. Tell me about bottom up, top down. What are the differences there? Tell me what that means.
So with bottom-up inflammation, this is food or environmental chemicals. It could be your own genetics, and maybe, some wonky genetics in there can cause some of that toxin burden in there. There can be oxidative stress. There can be a lot of these essentially bottom-up triggers that are causing that pro-inflammatory response. So that can absolutely cause symptoms, like impaired gut health. It can cause brain fog, anxiety, fatigue. It can cause GI symptoms, obviously. It can cause all this life discomfort, which can be managed from simply identifying and eliminating these sources, or at least understanding how to incorporate these sources into your life. Because what if you react to almonds? Well, maybe you don't want to be a person who eliminates almonds in your life. So then it's understanding, how often can I have this product? How often can I be around, diesel fumes or something, and be in a way where you're not provoking your immune system and you're not creating this uncomfortable life experience, I guess you could say. But then on the other side of the coin, a lot of people are really quick to target that bottom-up inflammation. I just react to everything, and, I have allergies and I have all these things. But often what I've found is that a lot of the inflammation that a person experiences from day to day is created from just the way that they're thinking. So this is where that top-down inflammation comes in. And the symptoms can be the exact same as what can be experienced from bottom-up inflammation, because your body, it only talks to you in symptoms. Essentially, that's the language of your body. So it's understanding how to isolate the variables and know, okay, am I coming into this situation thinking consciously, thinking in a way that's serving me, so that I'm not creating this chemical cascade, this hormone release that's creating all of these pro-inflammatory systems? And a lot of this comes down to that fight or flight response. How can I regulate my nervous system so that it's not provoking this autoimmune response too. So it's really trying to understand, okay, how can I, number one, think consciously and think intentionally, act intentionally in a particular situation, whether it be maybe your husband or your wife said something and you're trying to instead own that situation and understand that, well, it's only your perception of that situation that has nothing to do with the words that somebody else says or, whatever project your boss needed you to do. It has to do with the ways that you're choosing to think about them. So it's understanding how can I take ownership of that and then also take ownership of the other variables so that I can live a life where I'm not constantly plagued by brain fog, like anxiety, headaches, migraines, muscle aches, all of that stuff that often we attribute to aging.
Gotcha. Hmm. I I wanted to ask, and this is a question that came up for me right away when you used the word peacefully, losing weight peacefully, and I might already have my answer to it in what you just said about taking ownership. But my question was, what what's the opposite of losing weight peacefully? Like I would imagine that's the way that might kind of be the default approach to losing weight, but like what for you is the kind of the antithesis of that idea of losing weight peacefully? How does that look? How is that showing up for a lot of people?
Whether it be the ways that you're choosing to either talk to yourself, view yourself, treat yourself, or it could have to do with the foods that you're choosing to eat. It could look like even, in the bodybuilding world, right? That's not exactly peaceful weight loss, right? It's more like this dictator style weight loss where it's like your brain takes charge of your body and demands things from it, right? You will lose weight. You will look this certain way. You will feel this certain way. And it's this very uncomfortable dictator style weight loss. And it doesn't need to be like that. And I think that that's what I want to try to culture is learning how to more align and help to build that relationship with the brain and the body and help them to work synergistically as one to number one identify, well, what is the body struggling with, and number two, how can the brain be kind and kind of almost guide and allow your body to release those calories peacefully.
Mm, got it. Dictator. Dictator style. I like that. I mean, most of us, if we heard the dictator is going to be running your life, we would be like, no, absolutely not. But then I think you're right on. Like when it comes to creating changes we want to see getting results, that's typically the approach is like the dictator's going to get it done and going to
Oh,
get me where I want to
absolutely,
be.
right? You will not eat chocolate. You will not have any carbohydrates, and it's like that's how you create that yo-yo style on the wagon, off the wagon type lifestyle, and it's just not fun. Number 1, you fall off of it, and it's it's not realistic. So it's like creating this peaceful way of how can I include chocolate? How can I include carbohydrates in a way that serves my end results that I desire, right? And it's again, it's really understanding how to come in alignment with, okay, well, this is my body. This is what my body needs. And I know this because I've been able and willing to do the work to understand what my body is telling me first before I decide that plan of care. And that's where you come into it's very valuable to really take that time to listen and to do your research, right? To get some of that lab-based testing when needed and to understand more from that sniper approach what your body needs instead of just constantly like shotgunning and just hoping something sticks and hoping it's the right things to do.
Hmm, gotcha. I know you talk about how difficult weight loss can be a blessing, right? Could you tell me more about that? Like how is that a concept? Because I feel like most people would feel like this is a curse. I'm trying this, trying to get these results and it's not working. How is it that that can be actually a benefit to us?
Well, I feel that we're all given challenges. in life, right? And these challenges will be kind of a different flavor. But ultimately, sometimes when you really strip down some of the layers, you're working through one common issue. So when it comes to weight loss, a lot of times you'll see this struggle in many different areas of a person's life. And it's just they haven't learned the tools and they haven't grown into that next version of themselves in order to become this new person. And I think that weight loss is this super obvious slap in the face challenge that most of us are presented with that forces us to evolve into this next version of ourselves. Because what it's going to do is force us to, number one, to accept and to identify and to allow the emotional experience that is our current life. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times with food, with overeating, with overdrinking, it has very little to do with the overeating part and the desires for overeating, but much more to do with an unwillingness to lean into the human experience and to embrace the feelings that are associated with everyday life. So it's less of an overeating problem and more of an underfeeling problem. So when it comes to that, and when you truly kind of allow yourself to embrace the human experience in a way where you're not constantly running from it and fleeing from it and trying to avoid it, all of a sudden you're able to maybe lean into the discipline that's required of following a food plan. You're able to lean into maybe even the inevitable feeling of isolation when you go to a party at night when you've committed to doing a 24-hour fast that day. And instead of like feeling deprived and frustrated and mad that, oh, I have to do these things because my body hates me, it won't lose weight. Instead, you come into these situations and you're like, oh, wait, no, I want to fast because I love my body and I know that fasting really kicks into overdrive some of these systems that are protecting me. So I love to incorporate fasting. And unfortunately, it happened on a day where there's a party. And that's okay because I'm willing to allow for isolation. I'm willing to allow for a little bit more desire to be on my plate today, and nothing's gone wrong. So it's helping you to not only overcome the challenges that I guess the human experience kind of forces us into, but then also doing it in a way where you are truly transitioning into this next best version of yourself.
Mm. Well, I like the way you explained that. That was awesome. With that specific example of going to a party and having a little more desire on your plate and being okay with that. That was good. Very nice. Embrace the human experience. I feel like that was a nice theme that you brought up. And oftentimes here on the show, I'll ask experts about first steps, right? Begin within health show is, begin. How, with that idea of embracing the human experience, like what for you as you're coaching clients, what's a first step? Like, is there a common first step that you encourage people to take in order to begin to embrace the human experience? Or what are some ways that we could start to do that?
So this is really on that side of the coin where it's targeting that top-down inflammation. And really the first step, and I think the most valuable step that seems very stupid and simple, but that so many of us just overlook is allowing yourself to be conscious and onto the thoughts that your brain thinks. Because a lot of times what happens is we just kind of go along with whatever our brain comes up with, and we don't really listen to it or begin to hear what's truly just a thought error. because we're believing a lot of thought errors in our lives and we're just kind of running with it. And this series of thought errors then creates more of that provoked immune system, more of that dysregulated nervous system, because it's believing thoughts like, I can't do that. This is really hard. And when you like really inspect these thoughts, it's like, okay, well, dieting is really hard. Is it? I mean, is it really harder than not dieting? Or because really, if you look at it consciously and intentionally, they're both kind of equal. Like you're both, again, you're being slapped with the human experience on either side. Whether you're following your food plan, you're going to be faced with the 50-50 of maybe a little bit of excess desire, a little defeat, maybe a little isolation. But on the flip side, you're being faced with that confidence and that pride that I was able to do the thing. I was able to follow my food plan and show up for myself, right? But then on the other side, if you don't do this stuff, it's still the 50-50 experience of life. Like it's still, oh, okay, so now I didn't show up for myself. So I'm feeling kind of the embarrassment or the shame or the frustration that I can't do this. And I also got to experience the excitement of having a cupcake, right? Or having that extra glass of wine. I got to kind of indulge in that immediate gratification. But ultimately it's choosing this life that you're wanting to live and really kind of living into it.
Mm.
Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought, but
No, that was great. I appreciated that look at the 50-50 of, human experience. I think maybe it's a similar way to say it that I've heard, like choose your hard. It's gonna be hard either way.
definitely choose your hard. Yeah.
Choose which one you want. It's gonna be difficult to do either in some respects, but there's gonna be rewards from either as well. But you live into, the life you want to be in. And that phrase you've used already, the person you want to become. I like
Well,
that.
and along the lines with that, because there it is. It's taking that first step. And I think the first step needs to be, of course, being conscious to your thoughts and truly deciding to inspect them on purpose,
Hmm.
writing them down, doing brain dumps, being, I guess, privy to the thoughts that your brain chooses to think. Because sometimes you just get these like drive-by shootings, right? Where all of a sudden you're faced with the emotion that believing this thought created. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I just feel this like hit of shame, this hit of embarrassment. And it's like, I don't even know where that came from. Well, chances are it was just a thought that you unintentionally believed. And it's time to really start pulling these to the surface and it's like cleaning house, right? You want to pull all these thoughts out, inspect them, and then flick away the ones that are just total thought errors. And then really put ones back in place that you want to choose to believe on purpose. And that's kind of, I think, that first step for managing your top down inflammation and really regulating your nervous system. But then that first step for identifying bottom up sources of inflammation is definitely going to be a little bit more objective, right? You want to be more of a scientist of your body, and that does truly require some lab based testing. You've got
Okay.
to figure out where you're at. And what I mean by that is everybody's genetics are different. Every single person, right? Everybody loses weight differently. Everybody, methylates differently, processes toxins differently. Like everybody's cardiovascular system operates differently. So it's really identifying, well, what is causing the inflammation in the first place? And I want to kind of give you an idea of genetics in a way where it's totally understandable. So I like to think of genetics like a network of gears. So, and each gene that your body has is like a tooth on the wheel of this gear system. And all these gears are, of course, they're kind of intertwining and interlocked, and one system affects another system. So they're all intertwined. So if you have a gene that is chipped or cracked or missing, or there's a problem with it, if you just have one on this big old network of gears, it really doesn't matter. Like you're not gonna feel that slowdown. Nothing's gonna hitch or start to heat up. You're gonna have no problems. But if you have a series of chipped, cracked, missing teeth, that's when you start to have a slowdown. That's when your body starts to struggle a little bit. Or maybe there's a backlog of oxidative stress, toxin burden. There's something going on there that can down the road cause that cancer formation, that chronic disease, that symptom development. So you want to identify, number one, well, what genetics are causing some of these grand, more broad system slowdowns? And how can we learn how to then support the bypass reactions, the bypass systems that are in place to kind of help to support that genetic slowdown? And then along this same analogy is the gear oil. So whether you have perfect genes or not, let's say you have perfect genes, right? There's no genetic variations that are wonky. Everything's just cruising along. Well, if you don't have gear oil, what's going to happen to this genetic system? It's going to totally seize, right? It's going to heat up, it's going to start smoking, and then it's eventually going to just stop altogether. And the gear oil in this analogy is your micronutrients. You have to have the appropriate types and amounts and forms of these micronutrients in order to keep this network of gears moving, I guess, seamlessly. And then what this can do too is help you to know, okay, well, I know that I have these series of chipped teeth, cracked teeth in this particular area that requires this certain kind of gear oil. So I'm going to make sure to regularly inject this gear oil to just make sure that, because I know that there's nothing I can do about this gear, like I can't fix it. So I'm going to make sure that it's operating as smoothly as possible. And then I'm going to put into place behaviors and interventions, whether it be diet or lifestyle or the ways that you're thinking. I'm going to put in place those behaviors that are going to make sure to not overstress this particular area of my body because I know it's already a weakness. So I'm going to hit it from both angles, right? I'm going to inject gear oil and I'm going to reduce that burden on that system. But without knowing where your genetic wonkiness is or where your micronutrient deficiencies or overutilization is, you won't know where to even address these systems. Then it's just that shotgun approach, right? That you see a lot of people taking where it's, I'm going to eat clean or I'm going to just take this generalized multivitamin because it's good for me. I'm covering my bases. But it doesn't work like that. You can't just inject the wrong gear oil into a certain area and expect it to work because it needs to be the right form of nutrient that's in alignment with what your body needs. It needs to be the right amount because a lot of times you can create inflammation because you're having the improper form of a nutrient or you're blocking the reception of another nutrient because you're having too much of one thing in abundance. So it's really understanding, okay, what symptoms do I have? How am I creating these symptoms? Because you can blow through your micronutrients. I mean, I'm talking 20-year-olds to the point of deficiency in micronutrients because of an overactivated nervous system. So we have to calm that top-down inflammatory response. And then maybe even from that, all of a sudden your nutrients will just normalize, right? So it's not always just shotgunning it with supplements and, oh, okay, supplements is the answer. It's like, no, you need to understand, okay, well, how can I understand where the problems are, understand what's causing the problems in the first place, and then put into place a plan, a very scientific and very objective plan that's built in the understanding of how your body works. This is kind of that other side of the coin that you can create that peaceful weight loss because this is where you're following your own food plan. You're going to be having this plan in place and you're going to be like, oh, no. I'm eating this particular food at this particular time because of this, this, and this. And this is how I anticipate feeling from it. And if I don't feel this way, well, then I know exactly what's happening and I know exactly what to do in order to realign my system or to assist my system where it's struggling because your body doesn't want to have symptoms. That's not like the natural thing that it's like, oh, well, I'm aging, I better have symptoms. No, your body wants to be functioning very effectively and very efficiently. So we want to really know how to create a plan and how to follow that plan so that you can live into that best version of yourself.
Nice. Oh, yeah. I like that. Another soundbite. Your body doesn't want to have symptoms. Surprise, right? I think
Right?
that's so good to appreciate and to realize like this is a an opportunity to assist your body to work more optimally when those symptoms show up, including difficult weight loss, right? So,
Absolutely,
oh,
especially with difficult weight
yeah.
loss. Because
Wow.
again, that's just a symptom.
Right. Wow. Awesome. Carly, what is the best way for listeners to get in contact with you?
So head on over to my website, yourlivinghealth.com. I have a free course for anybody interested, just /free course. I invite anybody who's really struggling with overcoming that top down inflammation to tune in to my podcast. And we just go over some short and sweet, actionable ways for you to overcome that area of your life. And then for those of you interested in more of the objective testing, I do offer a inflammation screen. It's very cheap and affordable, and it's just a way to kind of get that snapshot into your body to see if there's even need to dig deeper. So yourlivinghealth.com /free course. That's where you can find me.
Okay. Awesome. We'll have a link in the show notes. Carly Lucchesi, thank you so much for being here on the Begin Within Health Show.
Thank you, Nate.
All right, I want to thank Carly once again for being here on the Begin Within Health Show with us. The link to her free course is in the show notes waiting for you, or you can get it at yourlivinghealth.com/free course. If you want to lose weight and you're thinking, yes, chronic inflammation is an issue for me, that mini course is a great place to get started. You can also connect with Carly on her podcast, Your Living Health, which is available on Apple, Spotify, and Google platforms, where Carly focuses on all things inflammation and weight loss. So go check out her podcast as well, Your Living Health. Wherever you are listening to this podcast, go give it a listen. Such a great concept, such a great interview, and maybe one that helps us a little bit to wrap our arms a little bit around the idea of challenging weight loss. Stubborn, difficult. This process can be so challenging, but it can also be a blessing because it's going to move us to keep looking, keep searching for the real answers for the deeper health that we're all so interested in. Now, I want to let you know that there are a couple other episodes on this show. If you enjoyed some of the themes that you heard as Carly and I had our conversation, there are a couple other episodes that you might want to check out. I'm going to go all the way back to episode 37 with Dr. Anita Wang. We talked about why you need to clean up your gut in that episode. Episode 84 is also a great one to give a listen to. My interview was with Allie Cass, and we talked about something else we need to clean up, and that was why you need to clean up your language. And I think that connects so well with what Carly was talking about in the idea that if we're losing weight the right way, we can do it peacefully, but the wrong way is to do it in a way that we're just treating ourselves really horribly along the way. And a lot has to do with our language, the way that we talk to ourselves, the way we talk about ourselves. So I think episode 84 would be an interesting one as well for you to check out. And then one final recommendation I have for you, episode number 119. That was my interview with Rachel Levine, Beginning to Shift Negative Body Image. I think that's an excellent one as well, especially as we're on this theme of seeing the positive side of health improvement, seeing the blessing in the journey, enjoying the journey. So check out episode 119 as well with Rachel Levine. I think one of the other really beautiful things that came out of our conversation was that idea that your body wants to be symptom-free. Our bodies want to cooperate. Our bodies want to feel the way that we want them to feel. So if yours isn't right now, and you haven't exhausted every possible option for feeling better, and in particular, I will say this, if you haven't at least checked the big boxes, the boxes that, if we're being honest, we all know that we should be, we should be doing, we should be checking. And I'm talking about eating produce, fruits and vegetables, getting the right amounts of vitamins and minerals into our bodies. I'm talking about moving regularly. I'm talking about doing everything we can to get good sleep and manage our stress and have meaningful relationships with others and connections with the world outside, i.e. nature. If we're not checking the big boxes, those are always places to start. And that's really what I love to help people do, is get a look at those things, right? They're the things that a good doctor would say, like, well, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? And if you're not, why don't you do that first and then come back to me and see what else we can do, right? So if our body's not feeling the way that we want it to feel, and we haven't yet exhausted all those options, including the things that Carly talked about in her interview, then I implore you, please keep working. Embrace the challenge and realize that your body wants to cooperate. It's not your enemy. It's talking to you the best way it knows how and telling you it needs some more help. So keep working. Keep working to improve your health, even if today you can just move it forward by just one little bit, one little notch healthier today. Do that again tomorrow, and again, and again, and again. And these changes are going to benefit you. All right. I'm going to close this one up. Thanks again so much for your time and your attention. I know you could be listening to all kinds of other things, and you chose to be here with me, and it means so much to me. Thank you for keeping the Begin Within Health show in the top 10% of all podcasts. You've done that by listening. You've done that by following, by sharing, by rating and reviewing the show. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. It makes my work more enjoyable, more fun to see that so many people are benefiting from it. So I appreciate you so much for that. I'll talk with you again soon on the Begin Within Health show.